Hey everyone, my name is Brian Skinner from secretsofsushi.com, and in this video, I'm going to show you guys how to make the California roll. The California roll was actually in one of my earlier videos, and I figured that it's about time to update that video. I've learned a lot about video production and especially about audio editing, and I've also learned a couple of new tips that I want to share with you guys about making the California roll specifically. But before we get started, I wanted to cover really quickly all the equipment and ingredients that we're going to be using in this video. First, we have our cutting board. I have my sushi knife. This is a yanagi. I also have my bamboo rolling mat, which is covered in cellophane. This is also known as a makisu. I have a damp towel, which I'll be using to wipe off my cutting board, wipe off my hands, and also wipe off my knife. I've got a couple of plates in front of me with my cucumber and avocado, and as well as my seaweed, or nori. I have a small container of masago. I have my bowl of seasoned sushi rice. I also have a bowl of water. I have a vegetable peeler. I have a shaker of toasted black sesame seeds. And finally, I have a container of California salad. And this is just shredded imitation crab meat, which is essentially cooked pollock, and it's been mixed with real mayonnaise, or heavy mayo. So the first thing we need to do is prepare our vegetables. So I have a cucumber, and what I'm gonna do is just slice off the ends. Next, I'm going to use my vegetable peeler and peel the cucumber. The interesting thing about cucumber is that it has a relatively large cellular structure, and those cells contain a lot of water. Now, generally speaking, when making sushi at home, we want to make sure that our ingredients are as dry as possible, because too much water inside our ingredients will actually make our seaweed soggy and could possibly make the rice fall off the seaweed. So instead of using a more Western style technique of chopping food, which is to say that you would be pushing forward with a knife and making a very exaggerated rocking movement, what we're actually going to do is use the weight of the sushi knife to carry it from the top of the cucumber down to the bottom. So I'm not applying a lot of downward pressure here. What I'm doing mostly is trying to really let the sharpness of the blade do all the work. And by doing this, we're going to be slicing through those cells instead of chopping through the cells, which means that the water is going to be relatively more retained within the cellular structure of the cucumber. So the water is really only going to be released rapidly in the portions of the cucumber that we slice. Next, I'm going to set the cucumbers up on its end, and I'm going to cut a square around the seeds of the cucumber. So again, I'm going to let the weight and the sharpness of the knife carry it from the top of the cucumber down to the cutting board. And now that we have our cucumbers sliced, we're actually going to set them on a couple of paper towels and let them dry. So what I like to do is set the flat portion of the cucumber face down. And then I'm going to fold over another paper towel on top and just press down gently. So the goal here is to let the paper towels absorb any of the water that the cucumber is rapidly releasing. And I think this is a really important step to make sure the cucumber is nice and crisp whenever we bite into our sushi roll. Next, we're going to cut our avocado. Set the avocado onto the cutting board and use your sushi knife to slice down until you hit the pit. Once you've hit the pit, roll the avocado over and pick it up with your non-dominant hand. Then very carefully and very slowly slide the avocado up the knife until it reaches the tip. But don't let the tip of the knife go into the avocado itself. Now, pointing your knife straight up and down and holding it as steady as you can, rotate the avocado down the knife until you connect with the very first part of the slice. Next, carefully pull the sushi knife out of the avocado and wipe your knife off. And then set your knife at the top of the cutting board with the edge facing away from you. This is the safest place for your knife to be when it's not in your hand. Next, grab both halves of the avocados and twist them in opposite directions. To remove the pit, set the avocado half with the pit inside it and have the pit face up. Hold on to the avocado as far away from the pit as you can and then chop down into the pit. Like we did before, twist the avocado and your knife in opposite directions to pull the pit out. Now to remove the pit from your knife, curl your fingers around the pit and then place them on the flat part of the blade. And then very carefully pull the knife away from your hand. Now to prevent your avocado from browning quickly, we're going to hand peel our avocado instead of scooping it out with a spoon. So there's actually a thin membrane in between the skin of the avocado and the meat of the avocado itself. And that membrane helps prevent the oxidation process from happening as quickly. This is the best way that I've found to help keep my avocado green without adding anything like citric acid or salt. You can tell I made this video in the winter because the avocados that I picked were not great. Next, we're going to slice our avocados. I like to tell people that if you try to chop straight down on an avocado, typically the avocado will stick to the side of your knife, which is kind of annoying when you have to slice through the whole avocado and you want relatively thin slices. So instead, place the tip of your knife onto the cutting board and then draw your knife straight back through the avocado. Then we can scoop our avocado into our hands and flip them over so that the pieces are running left to right. I like to place the avocado into both hands and use my thumbs to push the slices forward and stagger them so it's easier to grab these pieces when we're ready to roll. Now that we have our avocado sliced, I think our cucumbers have had enough time to dry out. So we're going to set the flat part of the cucumber face down on our cutting board. And just like with the avocado, we want to set the tip of our knife onto the cutting board and draw it straight back. Again, keep in mind that the slicing motion is going to be more beneficial for slicing cucumbers than a chopping motion. So you never want to bring the knife all the way down or try to force the knife through the cucumber because it would burst those cells and release the water a lot more rapidly. Versus if you draw the knife straight back, it'll slice through those cells and it will slowly release the water of the cucumber over time. And then we can set our cucumbers on the same plate as our avocado. Alright, now that we have our vegetables prepped, it's time to roll the California roll. The first thing we want to do is unfold our makisu, or our bamboo rolling mat, and you'll notice that this has two distinct sides. One side is going to be darker in color and have flat bamboo pieces, while the other side is lighter in color and has rounded bamboo pieces. So we want to set the darker side of the bamboo rolling mat face up, and we want to make sure that the bamboo pieces are running left to right. Next, we want to grab a single piece of seaweed, or nori, and you'll notice that this also has two distinct sides. One side is rough and textured, the other side is kind of glossy and relatively smooth. So set the rough textured side face up with about an inch of room left to the bottom of the mat. Next, you want to dip your hand into the bowl of water and then rub your hands together. You want to make sure your hands are wet enough to be glossy, but they're not so wet that they're dripping with water. Next, grab 2/3 of a cup of sushi rice and set it onto the seaweed, and then very gently roll the rice to all 4 edges. It's really important that you not press down too hard because we don't want to smash the rice. So using a gentle rolling motion, roll the rice to all 4 edges with a layer about 3 to 4 grains deep. Keep in mind, it's better to go over the edges a little bit than not quite all the way to the edge. After you've applied your rice, you should be able to see a few little pieces or specks of the seaweed poking out from underneath the rice. And that's how you know you've got a proper layer of rice on your seaweed. If all you see is pure white, you've probably applied too much rice to the seaweed. Next, we're going to apply some toppings onto the rice itself. And this is where the most variation of a California roll happens. So a lot of people will just put toasted sesame seeds on top, and some places will just put masago. But in this video, I'm going to show you guys how to do both. So starting with masago, what I'm going to do is get a small pinch of masago, maybe about the size of a quarter, and I'm going to set it on one side of the rice and smear it to the other side in a straight line. Next, I'm going to sprinkle some black toasted sesame seeds. Now, in order to get a consistent layer of sesame seeds on our rice from a shaker, what I'm going to do is turn the shaker so it's parallel to the cutting board, and then I'm going to shake the opening up and down while keeping it parallel. This will help prevent the sesame seeds from kind of going all over the place. And if you start relatively low to the rice, then the sesame seed will spread out and typically stay just on the rice. Next, we're going to get our hands wet again. And remember, we want them to be glossy but not dripping with water. And what we're going to do is grab the 2 edges furthest away from us and very carefully pick up the rice and seaweed and flip it over. Again, we want to maintain about an inch of room from the bottom of the bamboo mat. Next, we're going to take about a golf ball size amount of our crab salad. And what we're going to do is mold this kind of like clay from one end of the seaweed to the other. The general principle with rolling sushi is that we want each bite to be perfect. And in order to accomplish that, we have to have consistent ingredients from end to end. So try to make sure that your ingredients are nice and even, and especially that they're consistent. Next, we grab 2 pieces of cucumber and lay them on the side of the imitation crab salad mix furthest away from you. If you see a little bit of overlap, you can simply slice off that portion to help keep the ingredients as consistent as possible. Next, grab a few pieces of avocado and set it on the side of the crab salad closest to you. Again, to help keep things consistent, With the avocado, I like to take 2 pieces on either end and set them with the flat side face down. And then with the piece in the middle, I'll set the flat side face up. Now we're ready to roll our California roll together. So what I'm going to do is use my 2 thumbs and put them underneath the bamboo mat, relatively close to the center. With my remaining 4 fingers, I'm going to hold the pieces of cucumber into place. And what I'm going to do is curl my thumbs up and over the ingredients, all the way until I completely lose sight of the ingredients altogether. And what I'm going to do is use this bottom edge of the bamboo mat to kind of scrape against the exposed part of the seaweed. And at this point, I'm going to squeeze my hands together, but instead of pressing down, I'm actually going to squeeze them back towards me. And it's at this part of the whole rolling process where you apply the most pressure. Next, we're going to peel the bamboo mat up so it's no longer in the way. And what I'm going to do is use my left hand, or my non-dominant hand, to pull the bamboo mat away from me, and using my right hand, or your dominant hand, push the bamboo mat forward. Now you don't want to apply so much downward pressure that you're going to change the shape of the roll, but just apply enough pressure to make sure the bamboo mat stays in contact with the rice while you continue to roll forward. Now that a sushi roll is assembled, it's time to tighten the roll and make its final shape. So you might notice that this roll is kind of lumpy. So to help shape it in a more consistent way, what we're going to do is drape the bottom of the mat over the top. And again, using my non-dominant hand, I'm going to hold on to just the bottom portion of the mat. And using my dominant hand, I'm going to press my fingers down on the top portion of the mat, but only so that the top portion of the mat and the bottom portion of the mat are touching. So my fingers are never actually pressing onto the top of the roll. And it's really important that I'm not applying pressure to the roll itself. So what I'm going to do is, with a firm grip with my non-dominant hand, I'm going to hold that bamboo mat into place, and with my right hand, fingers stretched as wide apart as they can, I'm going to start to pull the bamboo mat back towards me. So the idea here is that the sushi roll is rolling in between the top portion of the mat and the bottom portion of the mat. So what we're doing is we're simultaneously conforming all the ingredients together and squeezing out any excess air, in addition to shaping our roll so that it's nice and round. Finally, we want to pick up our sushi roll and take it off of the bamboo mat and set it onto our cutting board. Then drape the bamboo mat over the top of the sushi roll, but leave just a little bit of ingredient sticking out from one end. Make sure that your hands are wet, and with one hand, hold the bamboo mat in place, and with the hand that's wet, gently press those ingredients in and use the edge of the bamboo mat as kind of a guide. So this is a really good way to make sure that your end pieces are nice and neat. And do the same thing to the other side. Okay, now that we have everything rolled together, it's time to cut our roll. What I like to tell people to do is to take that damp towel and drape it over the back of the knife, and then gently squeeze and pull the knife back. This is going to do 2 things. 1, it's going to make sure that there's no debris on our knife before we start slicing our roll. And 2, it's going to apply a very thin layer of water onto our knife to help prevent the rice from sticking. So instead of slicing the sushi roll like you would a normal piece of food, what I like to tell people to do is to imagine that they're actually sawing through a log. And the reason why is because sushi knives are typically sharp enough to cut right through the sushi without needing to apply very much pressure. If you rock forward and press down, you're very much likely to deform your sushi roll shape and start to smash ingredients out of either end. So what I'm going to do is set my knife in the middle of my sushi roll, and then without using very much downward pressure, I'm going to try to utilize the full length of the sushi knife and let that do the cutting action. So just start slicing back and forth, letting the weight of the knife carry it from the top of the roll down to the cutting board. Next, stack one half against the other, and then we're going to repeat that process. If you have a lot of debris on your knife, again, you can take that damp towel, fold it over the back, and wipe your knife off. This is especially helpful if your knife is not razor sharp, as any kind of excess debris on the knife would prevent the knife from slicing through the rolls easily. So again, we're going to set the knife in the middle of our 2 pieces, and we're going to start slicing back and forth. Then we're going to cut our pieces, which are now into quarters, into 1/8. So set them in the middle again, and cut them in half. And we'll repeat that for the other half. If you're finding that you have a few pieces of rice that are kind of fraying out from the sections where you sliced it, you can put your pieces back side by side and drape your bamboo mat over the top, making sure that the flat parts of the bamboo mat are the parts touching the rice. Then you can gently squeeze the bamboo mat around the roll and just kind of form those frayed pieces of rice back onto the roll itself. This helps make sure that our roll looks nice and neat. Then we can stack them back up again and take the 2 pieces on either end and knock them over, and then push them back in. And then stagger the 4 pieces on the right up about 1/2 inch, stagger the 2 pieces in the far right up 1/2 inch, and then stagger the 2 pieces in the far left down 1 inch. And now we have a perfectly made California roll. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you want to stay up to date with all my most recent videos, be sure to click on the subscribe button below. And for more information on how to make sushi at home, go to my website at secretsofsushi.com. My name is Brian Skinny from secretsushi.com, and thank you guys for watching.